Hello, world, and welcome to Grounded and Guided. I'm your host, Lynette, and I'm just so happy that you are choosing this moment to spend with me. Thank you. Today, I want to talk about something that is so much a part of me, that comes from deep within me, and I embody it. I have walked this walk and struggled, and it is been so much a part of this journey to this point of where I am today. And that is about the relationship with ourselves. And when I say that, like how we are speaking to ourselves, how we are treating ourselves. Can we give ourselves compassion? Can we wrap our arms around ourselves and say, I love you? Or are we at odds with the mirror? Are we in a space where we are not kind to ourselves? We talk very unkind words and have very unkind inner dialogue with ourselves. Do we have that inner critic that is constantly running in the background saying that we are not skinny enough, pretty enough, smart enough, young enough, strong enough? And that list goes on. So this episode and this topic, I feel like needs to just be wrapped in a cocoon of compassion and kindness, because it can really pull at our heartstrings when there's someone asking us how we are talking to ourselves. And that compassion is just really important. Just recognize that where we are right now is enough, that we are loved just as we are right now. This version of us in this moment, we are loved. Now, I say that this topic is so deeply connected to me because the practice of being able to love myself is something that I have worked through, transitioned into, and constantly am at battle with over and over again. You see, there was a time when I hated myself. I'm going to say it just as bluntly as that I hated myself and I was so mean to myself. And that come at a time when I was dealing with a lot of emotions, and all of that kind of mixed together created an eating disorder. That inner critic, the beliefs and the conditionings, the messages that I had got from family and society, mixed with all the heightened emotions of being a teenager, made this really interesting cocktail within me that created an eating disorder. And I want you to just recognize that these messages that we hear from our external environment, the messages, we're not skinny enough, we're not good enough, all of that is not ours. That is the BS from the external environment. And that is what we call conditioning. It can impact us. And somewhere as we start to move through life, it becomes our beliefs that the ideal body looks a certain way, that the trophy belongs to only those who, and you fill in the blank, to create these beliefs that we are not good enough. But love can tell us different and can slowly walk us back to this place where we can believe that. So that time in my life where I hated myself, what did that look like? What did that feel like? Let me kind of illustrate that for you. Every time I looked in the mirror, I never had anything nice to say about myself. It was always that you look fat. That for me was something that continually played. That was on a loop for me. And because that was constantly on a loop in the background all of the time, that kept me in this place of shame. So everything that I wanted to achieve or to put myself out there or just be able to just really go out and do, there was always this voice in the background saying that I was fat. And it kept me stuck. It kept me in fear of not being able to just move through life how I wanted to. And it was that point where I had an emotional breakdown that kind of started to shake everything up. So if you know my story, listen to this podcast, you know that in 2017, I burned out and had an emotional breakdown. And why that happened is I was living my life with my conditionings in the driver's seat of my life. I was listening to the beliefs, the conditionings, the programmings that were telling me who I was, and I wasn't listening to myself. So I believed that I was fat. I believed I wasn't worthy. I believed that I wasn't good enough. But there was something in me that was fighting that and telling me, no, that's not the truth. That is not who you are. But my head just had me believing that was the truth. So I was at odds and I was fighting myself and I broke down. And it's that experience that really started me looking at life differently, looking at the things that I had been doing up to that point in time that got me there, and look at them and ask myself what belonged and what didn't. And I remember hearing somewhere along the way this message of how we talk to ourselves. And it had us just think about those that we love and how we talk to those that we love compared to how we were talking to ourselves. And it made me realize that how I talked to my friends and my family and those that I cared about was in huge contrast to how I talked to myself. Wow, my world was blown up. That awareness alone on just that one very simple thing really started to create big ripple effects for me. So it was with that bit of understanding and awareness that I gained that I decided to choose different. So I made an intention that I'm going to change the way I talk to myself. I become very aware of that inner dialogue. And when something come up where I was belittling myself, being very negative, I was unkind, I was hating myself, I just stopped. I said, no, I don't talk about myself like that anymore. And it was just that simple act of stopping. And then eventually that act of stopping created space where I started to choose to change the dialogue. And I say eventually because it didn't happen overnight. Just like any change, there's a bit of a process. It's not instantaneous. There's some steps that we need to have to work through. We need some space around that. We need to be able to give ourselves kindness and compassion. So eventually I got to that space where I could change how I was talking to myself. It started small as just a matter of, I see you, there you are. Just kind of acknowledging myself as I was in that moment. And then I was able to just start to say, oh, that color looks good on you. Oh, I like that shirt. And those little things, they just started to build slowly over time. Just continuing to be kind. I could shift into maybe some bigger things of being able to actually put a hand on my heart, being able to actually add in some physical touch with those kind words. And eventually that language and that dialogue turned into, I love you. And I remember those first moments of saying I love you and just so much emotion flowed through me. That was a huge step in connecting with myself and building a relationship with myself. And this practice holds true. I talk to myself in kind, loving ways numerous times a day. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not perfect. Absolutely not perfect. And so there are times when I slip into that shame cycle, that shame dialogue, and it kind of can start small and it can gain momentum very quickly when I talk about the relationship with myself, and where I was at one point in time in my life contrasted to where I am today, is at that kind of lowest point, there was just shame. Everything was just like cloaked or bathed in shame, because I have an interest in personal wellness, in fitness. That has always been a part of me. And because of that, I've also built this knowledge. And I even feel like today, so many of us know better. And I'm going to put air quotes around that, know better. And that can get us really wrapped up in a shame cycle of, I know I shouldn't eat that. Why did I eat that? Oh, you're stupid. You're worthless. And this ball of energy just starts building and building and building as we talk to ourselves that way. And that inner critic and those inner voices start to build. And it just makes us feel heavy and heavier, and just even maybe more worthless. And even as I talk about that, my body contracts. I want to drop my head, because that energy of shame is very much a very low frequency. But I want you to recognize that you don't have to live there. That does not need to be your steady state. That battle with the mirror, that inner critic that won't shut up, this feeling that you are not good enough, that does not need to be how you live. You can transform from that. You can transcend into a different way of living. And it just starts by being able to shift one small thing. So how do we shift? The first thing you can do is just be aware. Be aware of how you talk to yourself. And once we become aware, we can just give ourselves compassion. Give ourselves a little bit of grace, because we're maybe going to try something new. And then when we are aware, we can just stop the action that is harming us and create space for something different. And in that space, we can change the dialogue. We can change how we talk to ourselves. Just slowly, small shifts. And maybe it's not even how you talk to yourself. Maybe the action is just even being able to look in the mirror and just connect with yourself. Just being able to look at yourself and not say anything at all. Just look. Just see the person that is there, the person in that moment, just as they are. And then eventually, you might start to be able to say something kind. Maybe you'll be able to place a hand on your heart and connect physical touch with those supportive and loving words. And then eventually, maybe you can move to that place where you can start to offer yourself words of kindness, of compassion. Maybe you'll be able to support yourself with a hug. And then eventually, maybe you can move to that space that is the simple but so powerful, I love you. The simple act of changing how we speak to ourselves really, truly can change your life. I'm the example of going from a place rooted deeply in shame and self-loathing to one that is overflowing with love. Once I got to this place where loving myself become a daily practice, become just a part of my life, that capacity grew within me. And it really did start to overflow my cup. It made me want to show love in different ways. And it really opened myself up to recognize that I am also worthy to receive love. And I started to become more in flow with the world and the energy that really comes from our heart. There really is a giving and a receiving flow that happens in the world. I want you to just hear and understand that I would not be in the place that I am today if it wasn't for the giving and the receiving flow that takes place in the world. Over my journey, I've come across strangers who were just open and willing to just hold space for me, allow me to release, allow me to unwrap those limiting beliefs that had me so stuck in that world and in that very contracted holding place of I am not enough, I am not worthy, and the shame loops that I lived the majority of my life in. People who started out as strangers become fundamental points of impact on my life, very fundamental directional shifts for me. They gave me the space for me, to be able to recognize that there were voices within me that were stronger than the beliefs and the conditionings and the programmings that held me in that shame loop. They opened me up and brought in awareness to different actions and tools that I could utilize to help me move forward. They gave me guidance, insights, and empowerment to keep going, to keep taking the steps, to keep helping myself. And that's why I'm bringing this conversation to you today, giving you a tool that might help you to start to shift a limiting belief for you. This tool of changing the way that we speak to ourselves. It really is something small, but can be such a fundamental life shift. And I just want you to recognize that if I can do it, you can do it. And I'm here when you are ready. I want to leave you with a quote. Bruce Lee once said, "Don't speak negatively about yourself, even as a joke. Your body doesn't know the difference. Words are energy and they cast spells. That's why it's called spelling. Change the way you speak about yourself and you change your life." Thank you so much for being here with me.